well.
In 1834, slavery is abolished throughout the British Empire, which means Canada, being a part of that, abolishes slavery. Many people begin to make it across the Canadian side and settle there. So Canada became what is known as Canaan land, or the free land, because once people made it across to the Canadian side, there was a sense of freedom that they were able to experience that they were not fully able to experience, even here in New York State.
There are a lot of Jim Crow laws that are put into place in New York State before the Civil War. So travelers, even if they're legally free or if they're enslaved, are dealing with transportation segregation in some sense along the Erie Canal.
You think about the gradual abolition of slavery in 1827, just because that gradually became policy within the state, it did not mean that everyone that lived in the state agreed with that policy. And then when you get to 1850 and you have Millard Fillmore passing the Fugitive Slave Act, it put people who were living here free at risk, not only because of that federal policy, but because it deputized everyday American citizens to participate in the capture of everyday people. Many people didn't feel safe in America anymore, and it created an exodus of people escaping to get across to the Canadian side. And in order to do that, you travel along the canals, right? And then the canal, the Erie Canal, is connected to Lake Erie. You have people who are crossing the Niagara River as well as Lake Ontario. And in order to get to freedom, you have to pass through places that are border towns, like Buffalo, New York, like Niagara Falls, Youngstown, Lewiston. All of these areas have rich history, not only in the form of abolition, but also in helping freedom seekers get across to the Canadian side. In Niagara Falls, there weren't a bunch of safe houses or people hiding out. You're literally standing at the border of freedom where you can see Canada for the first time often in your life. Thankfully, there were people who were here that helped facilitate that freedom. And in many cases, you had people of African descent who are not only living here free, but maybe Canadian citizens who are working on the American side in the hospitality industry that are instrumental in helping people get across to Canada. Harriet Tubman, she actually took people from one place to the next and made many journeys back and forth from the Canadian side back across to America in order to facilitate freedom. Reverend Thomas James, he was born in Canajoharie, and he lived his life as a young man that was enslaved. When the canal was first being constructed, he actually followed the path of the canal all the way to Lockport, New York. The canal eventually connects to Lake Erie, so he departed from that particular path, made it to the Niagara River, and crossed over on the Canadian side. And then he made it back over to the American side eventually and settled in Lockport, New York.
The canal in reality was a much more diverse space than it is often portrayed as.